My name is Natasha Delany, and I'm the founder of Indigenous projects and events. And I'm here with my partner and Chief Operating Officer, Corey Delany. Together, we are a sober couple, Indigenous couple in sobriety. We are building a business. We are raising 5 children, and we are changing our stories. Part of one of our service offerings in Indigenous projects and events is the IndigiRise Life Skills Program and the IndigiRise Business Accelerator. And this podcast is a part of that. It is a continuation of those programs where we continue to share these teachings, we continue to share our stories, and we continue to share the fails and the wins of growing a business, of sobriety, and of raising children. So, episode 2. The very first episode, we talked about how we met in recovery. And today we're wanting to talk about a continuation of that. So, what happened next and where we're at and how our identity has formed based off of changing the stories that were once running in the background. So yeah, Corey, did you want to go ahead and kind of share what happened after we found recovery?
Like as in found recovery, like in like AA recovery, or as I went through Edmonton Drug Treatment Court.
Well, that's all kind of like part of it, right? So, there you hit a rock bottom, I hit a rock bottom, as they sort of say, and I don't know if we need to go deeply into that, but we both hit a rock bottom. We were together, right? We
No,
were.
and I think that it would be important for us to go through kind of like for me anyways to kind of explain that when the last day that I ended up using, what had happened that day, and it's not necessarily the rock bottom that I'm discussing. It's more of like how bad it got. And it was like when we, weren't together for a few months. I had our youngest at the times, Makai, our youngest child. Now we have another one. He's home and his name is Dakota. But I was in a condo downtown Edmonton, and I had been up for, I don't know, 7 to 9 days. I was heavily under the influence of cocaine, and the psychosis was like so bad that I thought people were in my condo. I was washing my cell phone, my routers, everything electric, my computer, everything that had a electrical circuit in it. I had it in the washing machine, and I was running the washing machine, and it was like ka-clunk, ka-clunk, and I was still, and it was just a tiny little apartment, like a condo. Like it was a 2-bedroom condo. It was tiny, and I was under the impression that somebody was in the condo, and that I was being under high surveillance from the police. And I thought and then I realized that it was, I thought it was Natasha that was actually in my condo, and then I had got so paranoid that I had our baby, like he was probably 3 months old, and I was on the 18th floor, and this condo had two different balconies, and I was on the one that was attached to the room that I had, and I was looking because there was a brick wall between my balcony and the neighbors, and I was had this baby out. It was like minus probably 15 to 20 out, and I was looking over there. I was going to figure out a way to jump with the, you know, 6 month, 3 month old infant to the other balcony. And something prevented me from doing that. And so what I did, and I didn't have a phone or anything to call anybody, and I was going to call Natasha and tell her to come and pick up Mackay because it got so bad that I wasn't all there. And then so I went downstairs, the condo building. There was a tattoo parlor, and I had went down there, and of course I didn't take anything with me. I was wearing a hoodie. Mackay was wearing a onesie, zip up onesie, and didn't take anything with me. I forgot left the keys in the room in the condo. And once you get down there in the fob, you can't get back up. And so I went to the tattoo parlor and asked them to use the phone. And from there, the phone, they basically said, "Oh yeah, for sure. You just come to the back room. You can use the phone." And then they obviously realized that this guy comes into the tattoo parlor, and he's got a baby. He's clearly very you know screwed up, and so they called the police first, and then they allowed me to use the phone. That's when I called Natasha, and also I called my brother. I believe I can't exactly remember the timeline of that, but right after that, police showed up, and then they took me, and I wouldn't let go of the baby, so they put me in the back of the police car, and I knew that I wasn't gonna see him for a while, and so Natasha showed up right after that, and so I gave her the baby from the police car, or the police did, and then right after that, my brother showed up, and because my brother showed up and promised that he would take care of me and watch over me, that they released me just on a charge of endangering a child, an infant. And so we went back to his condo in St. Albert at the time, which used to be my condo, and I still had some substance there, and so I was using it, and um, I was so paranoid that I thought that the Christmas lights over on the building, because it was I think January and or
It was
February.
December. That was in December. Like,
Oh
oh no, that was
yeah, it would have been
January.
February, January,
It was,
February.
oh yeah. Well, your sobriety date's January 21st.
Yeah,
So it would have been like, yeah, you're right.
so it would have been, yeah, like it was like January 20th. It would have been. And so I was in my brother's condo, and like there's like Christmas lights on the St. Albert rec center, or I can't remember exactly what it was, but community center across the road, and there's all these Christmas trees with all these Christmas lights, and I was so paranoid and screwed up that I literally thought there was like people on these trees, and that they were like police, and so I was like cutting up his IDs, and like and putting stuff into the washing machine there. And he had woken up at 4 o'clock in the morning and said like either if you don't go to bed, I'm gonna beat you up and throw you out. And so I went to sleep, and I woke up the next day. It was 10 or something. I don't know exact time, but like I went over, and he had gone to work, so it was just me there. And I go over to the washing machine, and like it was literally filled with garbage. Like I was just like washing garbage in the washing machine, and like I cut up a bunch of his stuff, and that's really, I remember going outside, and I think I was out to smoke or something, and I was out there, and I just remember like that there was no place but up from here, because it was just like things were so bad. I'd lost Lincoln before that, a few months before that. Lincoln had charged me with assaulting him. He was 4 years old, and it was like, that didn't support any kind of sober push at any level. And then yeah, I just kind of, I think, and then right after that you messaged me and said that, asked me if I'd go to AA, and then I said no the first time, and then I think you did again, and then that's when I ended up going for the first time. And then even then I think I still had a beer, and I was like, oh yeah, it was never alcohol that was my problem, right? Like it was cocaine, right? So, and then it's just like, so I remember went downstairs to the the pizzeria that they had there, and I remember having a beer, and I think it was before an AA meeting, and it was only one beer, but like, and then we went to the AA meeting after that, I think, and I think I told you that too. And you're
Yeah,
probably just
I don't remember. Yeah,
so.
like so. By the time this had happened, though, like with Mackay and the hotel, like my sobriety date's December 28th. Yeah, 2018, and we weren't together. Like there was a few months. I think it was September, like kind of September when you took off to BC, right? That it was that September, and then we had months where we didn't talk like at all. And I didn't see Mackay for a couple months. Um, and I was pretty much homeless. So I was staying at a couple girlfriends' house. I stayed at my friend's in Enoch here, and then I stayed at another friend's house in Mo Woods here in Edmonton. And then eventually, like my friend let me use her vehicle, so I was able to actually get around a couple days, and I got an apartment. And in that apartment, I must have moved in November. November was when I moved into that apartment, and she got me a job at the daycare that she was a director at, and and I ended up going to AA. I don't know how long I was in that apartment for, maybe a few weeks. But my sobriety date is December 28th, but I actually started going to AA just before November 28th. Um, and so I was in AA for a month, like November. And then, so while all of this was kind of going on with you, like I had already started my sobriety journey. I had already been going to AA pretty much every single day, if not twice a day. Celebrated a month sober on December 27th or something. And then, so that's why my sobriety date's December 28th. And I remember like that call that I got from you. I was grocery shopping, and I remember I was on this like pink cloud, because they talk about in sobriety a lot about being on this, like experiencing this pink cloud feeling. And I remember being in the grocery store, and I was just so grateful. I was so grateful that I was sober. I was so grateful that I could go grocery shopping for my kids, because it had been such a long time that I could even just be able to do that. Um, and even though I didn't have a vehicle, I had to walk to and from this grocery store. I remember just having so much gratitude. And then you called me, and I remember thinking, like, on the cab, because I had to take a cab downtown to pick up Mackay. And I remember, like, just being so, like, filled with so much gratitude. I was crying because I was, like, finally some justice is coming for me after having experienced everything up until that point. Um, and then, and then having custody of Mackay after that. But then, like also really, like, because we were talking at that point again, um, remember thinking about how much pain that you were probably going through. Um, and knowing that, like, because I think I did my steps in December. I did an entire set of steps in December, so I'd already done my steps. Um, and I just remember like thinking like this is gonna work. Like this is actually working, and if I could just get you there, that you would see. Um, yeah.
Yeah, and it's and like even just kind of circling back to like the pain that you went through with walking. Like I remember coming to AA, and like even to this day, it's like our friend Neil, which is 50 years sober, saying that when you want it, you want it, and used to go to 2 meetings or 3 meetings a day, pushing a baby carriage, which was with our son Mackay. And I'm assuming Ariana and Brock, because Ariana would have been young at that age, 12 or 13, maybe 11 actually. And it would have, and he was just in such awe, and he still is, that, you went through to do that. And that's like, if you really, really want it, you will get it. And it's funny because I was talking to, when I went and got my haircut yesterday or the day before, I was talking to the hairstylist, and and she, like, I haven't really shared any of this, and she was asking me about, like, what do you think, is it like a mental illness? And it's like, it's a decision. It's like literally, it's a decision, and that's all it is. And anybody
Like, what
that's
is the decision?
a
Like addiction?
sobriety, it's a
Oh,
decision.
sobriety.
Like, it's literally at the end of the day, if you really take everything and put it in a bucket, whether anybody wants to admit it or not, it's a decision, and that's all it is.
Yeah.
And you had made that decision, and I seen what you wanted at that point. And it's not like we didn't try to go. I remember we went to other meetings. You had went to Henwood. We had went to the Henwood meetings even before you went to Henwood,
Yeah.
and we'd go and we'd try, but it's like we didn't have any commitment, or we didn't hit a rock bottom at any level. And like, you sit in the rooms that we used to, and we'd hear about people that got a scare of a DUI and they quit drinking.
I
And
think I think too there was like for me, I feel like there was just me, there was us, and then there was a them, right? There was like this separation, and I couldn't like I couldn't relate to them, right? Like even though there were clear like similarities at that point in time, like they were sober, right? And I couldn't relate to that. And that was not anything that I could see at that point in time, which is crazy to think about now, like to see a life without drinking.
well, it's just like, what, like, the biggest thing that I could see is that it's like what it's going to be like. That's all we've known. It's like all I've known is drinking, and it's still very common. Like, if I went back and did any kind of connection with anybody I knew from when I was in high school or middle school or whatever, it's like that is very common. Drugs and alcohol are very common, and and there's a lot of people that I do know that I run into, even as we spoken about the oil field, oil and gas and stuff. Like, it's funny because there's people out there that are still using, but there's a lot of people out there that have started to get sobriety, right? And so I think that it's it gets so bad, and it's just like, it's you make a decision. It's and it's a decision to do something different than how it's always been. And I think that there's a lot of people that just don't understand that it's just a decision, but also recognize that the decision comes with a lot of accountability. And then when and when you start to look at yourself and make the decision to stop something like that, and look at yourself, and not just briefly take overview. It's like a deep internal look at yourself.
Yeah, like that. I think that's super important, that like accountability piece, because first of all, like to to admit to admit you're powerless, and that you're like wrong. I'm not talking about addiction, like first of all, because there's like in the 12-step program, there's like admitting that you're powerless against something. Like that's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about like um, during the process of like changing and anything, whether it's like addiction, whether it's like working out, whether it's like going back to school, like any kind of process like that, you have to take accountability for areas that you need to change. And sometimes like you can't keep doing the same thing over and over and over again and expect to have these different results, which is like you can't like, for example, go to university and complete university, and have the habits of somebody that doesn't have the same habits of somebody who's successful, right? Somebody who's successful in university does certain things a certain way. If you're not willing to do things in that way, then you're most likely not going to be successful. But in order to even do that, you have to admit that there's things that you didn't do. And it's that admitting, right? Because I feel like it verifies past stories from childhood, whether that's like, well, I'm stupid, or like I can't do this, or like whatever those limiting beliefs are. It reinforces that, and so we have to question those now. Like, is that true, right? Is that story true for me? Is it keeping me back? Where did I learn it from? Like, and then be able to then decide, like, I'm gonna choose something differently.
And I think that it comes down to, also, you're 100% right with that, but it's also like accountability isn't very common.
No.
Like it's not common anywhere. And especially when you go out to, the society, it's nowhere.
Yeah.
People don't see it either.
Yeah. Well,
Y-
because it's so much easier to blame other people so that we don't have to change, right?
Or allow our ego to be confronted is what it is. It's like, because then again, you are there's a ton of different fears there, and it all stems from when you're, again, we teach this in our life skills program about the porous sponge, right? Like it's like it all stems from that between 1 and 7, or 0 and 7.
Our brains are like porous sponges between the ages of, I think it's higher, age 1 to, like, no, from the, even from the womb, right? Like we experience things even within the womb and all the way up to, I think it's like 12 or 13 when our like subconscious mind, like there's our subconscious mind and then there's our conscious mind, right? So think of a circle and think of a horizontal line in that circle that represents the head. And the top of the horizontal circle is the conscious mind, and then below it is the subconscious mind. And we're getting all of this input from news, media, YouTube, like our parents, our teachers, our friends, everybody's, it's coming in, it's coming in, it's coming in. And the purpose of our conscious mind is to accept and reject thoughts. Our subconscious mind, that lower half, has no ability to accept or reject thoughts. It just takes in whatever the conscious mind says to do, takes it for. So within those young ages, like the conscious mind doesn't actually have the ability to accept or reject thoughts like it does as an adult. It's still growing, it's still developing, so it's just taking in everything. So everything is getting downloaded and programmed into the subconscious mind. So when we think about that in terms of like trauma, for example, like it doesn't have to be trauma, like it could be good things. But in terms of trauma, it could be like, your father is always putting you down and telling you, like making you feel like you're stupid. Maybe he hits you or whatever. And the meaning of those stories that our brain automatically accepts and programs is, I'm not worthy, I'm an idiot, I'm stupid, I'm whatever all of those thoughts are that we need to survive in order to accept the abuse. It's all being programmed within that subconscious mind. But then we reach a certain age where our conscious mind becomes to be fully developed and we can accept and reject thoughts. But because our subconscious mind is so already programmed with all of this wrong information, we're accepting and rejecting thoughts, only those that align with what's already there. So that's the reason why we make a lot of the decisions that we do as adults.
Honestly, I think it's a lot more now because people don't necessarily think for themselves, and so it could be.
But people actually don't even realize that they can accept or reject thoughts. That's where it stands. Like people don't actually realize like, oh, hey, like I can accept it, I can reject it, but say there's a opinion that like whether you're conservative or you're whatever those names are that we decide that we either are or aren't in terms of our beliefs, a lot of those come from childhood. So if we believe, for example, and I hate getting into politics, I don't like talking about it, just using this as an example, if we believe with all of the things that Trump does as being like good, then a lot of those teachings and beliefs were actually formed already from our parents, from our teachers, from media, from childhood. If we had a parent that was like had a completely different set of belief systems than Trump, then most likely as an adult we're gonna like be like, oh, Trump sucks, like blah 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 blah, like he's the horrible, like it really depends on those things that were already downloaded as children from our parents, from our grandparents, from teachers, from media, from all of these different experiences that we've had as individual people in childhood.
I don't talk about politics, but I'm going to bring politics into this conversation.
I'm using one example. I needed to use that
There's plenty of
example.
examples, but okay.
Well, that's like the one that most people can like right now with everything that's going on can uh, immediately associate with.
Which is all
So
opinions because nobody's actually educated enough to be, understand what is actually going on and on an economic level with any politics that I've met that have
yeah.
looked up both sides, looked at from a
Either way,
unbiased opinion, unbiased
either way,
research. What?
we're talking about like the stories, right?
Well,
We're
that's like
talking
I am talking about stories. Maybe you brought in the politics, which is take it away from the politics. Is that like are confronted with even a daily experience, and you will choose from the biased thinking processes that you were that you have experienced from a young age, rather than taking that experience as an experience and hey, like what is the pros cons, what is the left right, what is the up down differences between this experience, and
yeah.
actually doing research into it, like actually like looking into both sides and making an educated analytical decision on it, logical.
That's because and we had this discussion yesterday about how like most people were actually not taught how to think. But even as part of that, like, and we talk about this, is the reticular activating system and how if our brains are not like as our brains are amazing. They are like this the most amazing thing in the entire world is our brains. However, our brains are always working for us and filtering through because if we were to actually see everything that was happening in this moment, even within the room that I'm in, if I were to take in everything, the colors, the things that I can't see, maybe there's bugs crawling, like I don't know, like if we were to be able to sensorily experience everything that's happening, our brains would be too overloaded. So our brains create these shortcuts. And so um, part of those shortcuts are created from these past experiences and stories that were already programmed so that we can do better decision making. So an example of the reticular activating system working is like you want a car, and the car that you want is like you want a Tesla, and you're thinking about this Tesla that you're wanting and you're researching the Tesla, and then all of a sudden you're driving down the road and all you see is Teslas. That doesn't mean that the Teslas weren't there before, but because that's like what's on your mind and that's what your focus has shifted to, that's becomes all that you see now is these Teslas. And so that's how the reticular activating system works. In order to stop the reticular activating system from automatically making these decisions for you and changing that for you, is you have to do what you just said, and that is learn how to think.
Yep. And control what you have, what kind of information you have coming into your brain.
Yeah.
It's very
Yeah.
easy to jump onto Facebook and be up in arms down at the Ledge Center against whoever, Tom, Dick, and Harry. You know.
Or what's going on with Trump, or all of these things that are really going on that's not really within our span of control, right? Like, what can we do in our daily lives that are gonna, like you said, eliminate
Negativity,
the
negative
negative.
energy coming in.
So yeah, just even going back to like, the meaning that we were able to take from this experience coming into sobriety, this very, very painful experience. It was painful for me. I know it was painful for you. And then having to change the meaning.
Yeah. And just a side note, this lady used to, when we first got sober, I would always we'd be together, and then she, like at her apartment, and she'd like kick me in the middle of 4 o'clock in the morning, get out. I'm like, so I'd literally leave, walk, be like go an hour away, and then she'd be like, where are you? Come back now. and then
It was such a
it was
it was
crazy.
a cycle. Like
Like, just in
for
the middle of the night, just
I
get
think
out.
the very last time I did that was like 4 years sober, maybe
I don't know if it was.
3 years, so 4 years. But it was like literally what at least it was like every day, and then once a week, and then once a month. But then for like a really long time, I feel like even like maybe it's been a year since I'm like this isn't gonna work. We're gonna break up.
Yeah, it has been a while, but she still has her tantrums.
But now you also know how to zip it when you need to, which is a skill you needed to develop. Anyways, 7 years is a lot of time to grow up, and I feel like we have, and we'll expand more about this journey and the different areas that we've been able to work on together and individually. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode. And yeah, join us again for episode 3. Hi, hi.